This guy just landed right next to the boat. Well, guess what? Pull out a gun. It's coming together. We got lights. We got a missing shank. We have sort of a not level. Do we go post-op? We're going to go post-op. It's not called post-op. It's called post-production. Boy, today we are tying a rooster tail. Not true. Just the number of things that end up within arm's reach. Guess what's next? Barely in arm's reach. A coyote tail. And what I'm actually going to tie. This little biscuit. So pretty much the same fly as the last video. Hello, do you want, yes you do want to focus. Same fly as the last video. This whole thing, the tying and fishing and guiding thing, is a process. And for the mouse flies, it's I'm should probably listen to the things that I put out into public prior to putting them out into public, but I may have talked about this on the last video. There's a lot of different goals, and this is the same concept with streamer tying, where I'm not going to fish this thing in a lot of different circumstances. Where I'm going to fish that thing, where I'm likely to fish something like that, I am unlikely to fish something like that. Where I would fish something like this, I am somewhat likely to fish something like this. So the same process sort of happens with mousing, and I've encountered a couple of things that they aren't, I'm not going to say obstacles, because you get these eats that just, you got to be putting flies near where fish might be, and then do that consistently enough, with the idea being that when they want to eat, they will. That isn't to say that trout in particular are not opportunistic, because they are more opportunistic than, let's say, muskie. The bigger trout, man, I've watched so many follows up to the boat, and I've gotten a number on a figure 8, and it's becoming harder to. It's always been difficult for me to say, I just can't, fish whatever. If they see something moving, whatever, try to get down to them. Like, you're clearly, when they're eating a drunk or a swim bug, and you watch them sort of follow for one or two they sort of swim up behind it and then look at it, and then you give it another couple pops, they look at it again, couple little pops, big kill as it floats up to the surface, boom, all the way up to the surface. They're like not giving them too much credit, because their brains, they're fish, but they're making a decision, right? They're not saying, oh, that's something that I'm going to eat, and then they eat it. I see smaller ones do it too, but more often I see the big ones doing that little bit of a dance. And I have to think the same goes for mouse, and you don't get as much feedback because you're not watching whether or not a fish is following, but changing your retrieves up and, fishing something that is yay big. I'm trying to do some auto focus and lighting, make my life easier, something like that. I'll invariably make it more difficult in the near future. But fishing something like this relative to some of the other mouse patterns that I fish that are bigger, kind of longer, really, because this is, that's wide. That's we could sneak in a rule of thumb joke here, but that's half an inch wide, right? If I'm tying one that I'm big on the opacity and the profile of something, you're looking up at something, the trout are looking up, be the trout. You are looking up at something. But even in the articulated ones, I'm making sure that joint that articulation has some foam. So if let's just say this is the wire bend, right? I'm making sure that this is the front hook. I'm making sure that foam is over the wire bend, so that your eye on the back hook starts here, and then your foam starts here, so that you get a full blockage of light, as opposed to something that looks, tapered in the middle. Or in any event, this bloop, 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 that it's hard to call it fettuccine foam, because I'm not buying the fettuccine foam, and I also have just a touch of an ego, since I didn't know fettuccine foam was a thing. I haven't used fettuccine foam, so I cannot attest to whether or not it works. I have to think it's the exact same thing. It's just 2-3 millimeter foam cut in. I just get I think this is 4mm foam. I've gone over that. You can make swords and whatever else you want out of it. But I get the 2mm sheets from your favorite craft store, and it's like $1 for a big sheet, and you can get it in different colors. Just like I tie the peanut olives in olive, the peanut envies in olive. The whole like color at night thing is, I like rabbit because, and the same reason I'm using it in the swim bug, which I have in the vise. I'm tying a pile of them. Same reason I like the, some of my mouse flies are like, that one will be super dense, almost bass bug like when I carve it. But then other ones, it's sort of in the middle where there's still some, there's still a little puff to it. So considering all of these things, right? I wanted something that was a little smaller because when I'm getting eats and we're not hooking up, it can feel very frustrating. Sometimes, especially in these big flats, a good way to get eats is fish a spin rod. A good way to get eats is, putting big casts out there. And I love the all the lessons I've learned from Tommy were, in that setting we're fishing more targeted areas. When we're searching, and he's, the Beetlejuice, we're just gonna put that over there for the side right now. When we're searching with something like this, single hand rod, somewhat uniform, I have zones for sure, but they spread out at night and all that. So the milk and the gerbil, putting that rod butt under your armpit and just tap, 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 tap. Little guys, I can't say for sure why the lift and drop, right? The big pronounced V wake, whoop, with a stop, big pronounced V wake with a stop. In the big flat pulley sections, you're just making this giant call sign, and then it terminates at a very finite point. I think in the times where it feels like there is more convincing to be done, that speed can be night and day. It can be the difference between 20 or 30 eats and 3 or 4. Largely speaking, that lift and drop, that wake in the, lifting the rod and waking it and then dropping it with mouse flies that are not terribly big, those get eaten the best. The movement, so that 3 or 4 eats, you might get higher commitment there. And really, you start on the nights where it's like something's different when you're moving it and you're getting that 20 to 30. Boy, if you come up over, didn't get it, didn't touch it, didn't feel anything, and then, maybe 5, 10 of them, it's, you're moving it, and then if it's a bigger fish and they come up and just eat in whatever way that isn't perfect, that tension is not going to be immediately into a place where it won't pull out because you're just tap, 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 tap. So if you're tap, 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 and you just get like a quick swipe at it, that's you're not able to tee up that strip set. So I do like the tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. So you're giving it's basically the strips and the kills. You're giving them that opportunity to eat. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. Tap, 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 tap. You're right next to the boat. Slow little drag off to the side. Pause it again. Now recast. Those big pauses. Oh, I mean, it was just sitting there when you're, doing this and getting more line out for you're already not going to cast the line that you have out. And then a fish blows up. The number of times is somewhat painful. So, all right, we're starting to get really into the weeds here, which is par for the course. Come fish for peacock bass with me in the last week of January, January 19th to the 26th in Columbia. It is 6 days of fishing, lodging and food included, and the cost is $4,500. That includes getting on an airplane from Bogota to go up to camp. There's the lodging has Wi-Fi and there's chefs, and I'm excited. And from a consumer standpoint, I think it's a fantastic deal for 6 days of fishing and lodging and travel to and from Bogota. So all you have to do is get your flights, and I guess you could just go straight in there and get on the puddle jumper, but probably get the flights and get a hotel. And anyway, if you're interested, which you should be, contact me. Come fishing here in East Tennessee on the Watauga or the South Holston River for trout now, and in the near future, get out here for muskies. I think that's kind of it for now. Man, shouts out to everybody. Shout out to everybody, man. It's a Killer Mike quote, so don't hurt yourself. Man, TJ and Vaden. A guy I met teaching at ETSU has been bringing his son, who just got his first fish on a dry fly. He got like 5 or 6 eats, and that was just that was very cool. And yeah, I think that's going to be it for now. Check out my boy John at Tailwater Fly Co. Bucktails will be going up. Bucktails are available. You can get them on my website right now. But they'll be at Tailwater and on my website and at Schultz Outfitters. And I think there's probably still some there, but there's going to be a reload in the fall. All right. I'm going to tie a fly. And it's daytime, so I'm going to go fish after this. And there might be some bonus content or something like that. Okay. We are back. Just putting in like however many unnecessary turns on that. Wow, my shank is still available, which is not always the case. Normally, you put them down and then there's a process by which you lose a lot of them and then find them in 2 or 3 months, but not at the tying table. Your car seat is one of the favorites. Under the bed, under the nightstand, also a good one. I'll occasionally be out. This is a, I believe, a 35. I might be lying to you. It's not lying. Lying is with the intent to deceive. I might be incorrect in stating my information. I may be actively making a mistake and doing nothing about it. This one could be 45. All right, 35. So, big shocker, I did just talk probably for longer than this fly is going to take. We shall see about that. 2 minutes and 25 seconds. I guess I've already started tying. And obviously, I have not cut anything. So this is the 4mm foam. I would say worry not that much about, you know, stamping out your perfect mouse profile. It's really just tying in something that's, you know, about a ½ an inch wide. I am going to put in my little bump of rabbit that I had forgotten about. And you know what we're just going to do for fun? Because this should be fun. If you're not having fun, do something different. Man, Bob Ross, truer words. We're going to do some golden dorado. Picked up from Tailwater, Flyco, in Bluff City, but really turned on to this by my boy Jack. It is a very fishy color. I'm just going to go on record and say that it does not matter which color you are using for your rabbit. I think that a dubbing loop of craft fur would also do a great job. So I'm going to come around in front of that thread that's hanging so that then I can easily come up, over. And with GSP and rabbit, I'm just putting a little dab of super glue. This is the medium, and very much was turned on to that brand or company by Marlene. It's been a minute since I watched that. Bates, the dude who does lure making videos. It's quite entertaining. I like that medium. And now we have our foam. So one of the reasons I'm doing this is to get a little bit of a bump so that foam kind of stays up. And then sometimes if you're, I like these shanks. These are the Blaine chocolate shanks that have two. I am going to put in a little more thread. This is 140 GSP. When I'm tying in foam, or this is 140 denier nylon. When I'm tying in foam with GSP, especially going up to the 4mm or the 5mm, to get it securely fastened onto a very small radius, diameter, whatever you want to call it, you start to encounter the same thing you do with deer hair, where you're compressing it enough to where it's going to split. And so I like making that little area, that shank. I want to tie on something that's a little bigger than certainly just a hook shank. Again, you know, one of the reasons I like the Blaine's new shanks is that they have 1, 2, 3 going all the way. Boop, boop. This really, truly does not need to be probably even as precise or, you know, thought put into it as I am doing. It's just things that I do while tying. Foam, GSP, Rabbit, super glue. That thing is going to want to move around a little bit. And since we're not using a hook with a bend that provides keel in that direction, I really want to make sure that we stay where we want to be. And then I'm going to try to end pretty early here. Not rush my head. Another reason I like this fly is that you can tie it in really a wide variety of sizes. As I'm palmering this rabbit, I am licking my fingers and pushing that hair back. And I'm just assuming that whatever touches the shank is going to get a little super glue on it. Whatever. If you got problems with it, I don't know, use wire. Like, really, the rabbit hide onto GSP on a metal shank with some super glue is bulletproof. And without it, it might be a little floppy. Might be a little spinny. So I'm going pretty dense. I'm going, you know, probably wrapping like halfway over the previous and just continuing to try to do that with a little more emphasis up front, to whatever extent our taper becomes important. It is something that I think about. So there we go. We crept up a little bit, but I'm going to be okay with that. So another part of this is our casting. Rabbit, craft fur, other things that share the same characteristics that I'm talking about as rabbit and craft fur. They absorb water and hold it in a way that promotes easy casting. Now, when you don't have a bunch of other stuff, or if you have weight, it's the opposite. They hold water in a way that makes casting a nightmare because you don't have the air resistance that you get with all the other stuff. And we're just gonna give you a little part. I like doing an extra little, you can just tie it down like this. I like doing an extra little, let's keep some more buoyancy going here. One of the more frustrating things to encounter is when you're out mousing, your mouse fly is sinky. We don't like that. I mean, whatever, right? Someone's gonna say, "Oh, all my fishing at night is with submerged mice." Okay, well, I'm very happy for you, and I want to get a topwater eat in the dark. So, all right, now we're going to cut that off in sort of a circular path, and you can. I was supposed to have a trip. You could probably measure that so that you're not smashing this down, but it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to be putting some deer hair on here. And I like to think, no absolutes here, I like to think that this is adding some natural profile. So you do get a little bit of a profile bump. My jaws are just well used, we'll say. So you get a little bit of a profile bump, but it's less. Where has all my buff tail? Where has all my deer hair gone? It's right here. I have. You gonna focus on me, camera? I have big belly strips, and I like using that. So the deer belly, come on now. This is the content you deserve, quite frankly. The deer belly, and I'm sure everyone has experienced this who is tied with deer. You know, that white stuff is great. You get, you know, this layer of brown because it's belly, but then it goes into body hair, and like all this stuff is or can be just as buoyant, and in many cases, depending on where the deer was killed, when it was, just environmental factors, right? Some different times of year they need more underfur, and then when it's colder, they need those. They need their hair to be fluffier. This is a somewhat fascinating. I don't know, just how animals, how nature works. So they have underfur, and their hair is more fine when it is warmer, which is also when there are bugs, ticks. When it's colder, their hair fills up with air and they drop their underfur. There's also no ticks when it's colder. So I don't know if that's... I'm not going to put any more thought into that, but it is a dynamic that I find interesting. So pretty fast and loose here. Kind of a spin around that foam bump. Slight emphasis on keeping stuff on top, but really we're not going for a whole lot of perfection here. It's sort of the late 90s, early 2000s intentional bedhead, where you're not unkempt, but man, I have to say I'm completely out of touch with a lot of different things. Fashion particularly is one that I've just never really put a whole lot of interest in. But I have no idea, what the thing is. Like, there's not Jenko jeans, right? It just feels like everyone's kind of normal, like dressing normal. But also I think that's because in the late 90s, I would have said people are dressing normal. As stores are parading around shirtless teenagers in the mall. That's normal. All right. We're tying flies. So that's that. You can put one on the bottom. I'm cool with not. Now we're going to do our foam. If you feel like putting a hair clip or something to hold all this back, feel free. If any of this is looking like, I don't know, I remember, and I'm definitely sounding like a broken record here, I remember watching some tying videos back in the day. I am going to do a little clippy. And just thinking that it's, this guy is moving. There's a little tip for you. If you're ever in this situation, get it around all of your stuff and then slide it back. This guy's moving at superhuman speeds. You start to, I don't know if it's you start to become comfortable and then you are afforded the opportunity to care less, or you start caring less and you figure out that things are going to be as they will. Whew, that's not a life lesson for you. I don't know what is. We're pretty off center here. I keep a little high-tack swax from Loon on the inside bend of my C-clamp. And we are going to do just to be particular, because we can be, this is about 1 inch wide and about 1.5 inches long. I am going to be cutting it in half. I will probably lose some. I'm trying to think of a way I haven't done this. All right, whatever. That high-tack swax does a good job of just really having whatever you put in there stick, even if you leave it open. It doesn't really want to fall out. So, right, with watching people do stuff that seems like, how is that? Dude, I remember trying to do the, trying to tie the ganga. All right, I'm going to come back to this. When you get your strips in there, which I know I did a bad job of showing. I'm spinning and I'm holding, and I'm pulling back on this dubbing loop spinner, so that gives me tension. And now, if anything's gone wonky, we can make little adjustments. And we don't want to make giant adjustments, because you will start losing strips if you get a gap. It's not like one piece of material falling out. It's like all of a sudden your dubbing loop becomes a big percentage less full in one spot, which means tension drops and, you know, all of your foam comes out. So you really just need to get it to where it's starting to go here, because that's where it starts digging in. If you spin too hard, especially with GSP, you will snap through. All right. So right when they decide to go around. Option to stack for sure. In fact, that might be easier. I just I've been doing the, I think I started doing the, this is very, we are going to be fingery. As I'm wrapping around, I'm basically just pulling. It's like wrapping, you know, super tight, super dense wraps of chenille or feather, just pushing everything back. And then if you can grab that foam and just make it almost like a chenille. And as I'm doing this, I'm pressing back, just making sure that I'm getting dense wraps around that hook, or around that, the hook shank, the shank. So give yourself a little grace, everyone. Give yourself some space. Give yourself some space on that head, so maybe like a full third, I would say, because this part, especially with the shank, and I mean, you might have the shank jaws or whatever, but I keep slipping off. There we are. All right, a little down and dirty there, but it doesn't need to be fancy, and it certainly doesn't need to be perfect. As mentioned, when you're seeing me do this with deer hair or that, I'm both ensuring that I catch that dubbing loop thread, and then after I cut it, I'll try to catch it again on the other side just to, ooh, now it's definitely in. It was definitely in before. But right here, like when I'm putting all those wraps in and pulling pretty hard back, and also I'm holding it so that the shank isn't falling out of the jaws. But I'm basically packing it back as I'm putting those wraps in and cinching them down around that eye. And I am starting to creep up the eye a little bit, plus the super glue. You can use a, oh, that feels nice. You can use a stacker. All right, a couple more for fun. I keep meaning to get a refill of the filaments for the thread zapper, as much as it's, you know, optics only. I do really like that thing. So if any of this is a little funky, or if you don't go too tight on your wraps, or your dubbing loop of fettuccine foam just turns into a nightmare, and whatever, stack it. You know, if you have a little applicator and get some inside, ain't no thing. That's it. What was the last one? The spaghetti mouse? I'm calling this a Little Biscuit, which is weird because it's like the same thing as the other one. All right, stop. Okay, I'm stopping. I'm going to use a split ring tool to put a split ring around that open eye. It's another reason for using GSP and super glue, because that threading back there is basically like plastic. Put a split ring in, and then whatever, use your single inline barbless, or not. Book your trips. I'll see you out there.